We're going to start with the plenary session on Build Back Better with Girls. And I also take this opportunity to invite Dr. Indira Chakravarti. She is a Padma Shri and public health specialist, and she has traveled all the way from Kolkata today to join us. And we're going to have her insights on different issues today and tomorrow. Thank you, Indira ji. We're also very privileged to have Mr. Sonia Govni, who is the Director of Gender Transformation Policy and Practice, Global Hub Plan International. He is joining with us online. And if we can just do the mic testing with you, Sonia, so that we know that you're here. And thank you for waiting.
Thank you. I can hear you very clearly.
Oh, great, thank you. And we're also very privileged to have Dr. Neelam Singh, and she is Secretary and Chief Functionary Barcelona, is an organization who has done tremendous work on ground with adolescent girls, and she's also joining with us online. And Ashok ji, may I request you to join us on this. Ashok Kumar ji is the Executive Director of Dr. A.V. Balika Memorial Trust, and he has been a great partner in the plan journey. I'm going to hand over the podium to Upma ji, but before that, let me also introduce our chair, and then I'm going to do that. So we are here today on the plenary session on Build Back Better with Girls. And as I stated, Upma ji has been involved with the plan initiatives and steering and guiding us from quite some time. And Upma Chaudhary ji, she has experience of more than 35 years in Indian Administrative Services. And she has been working, had a lot of responsibilities in public dealing, service delivery, program implementation, and policy formulation and coordination across sector, including HR, finance, education, tourism, animal husbandry. I think the list is so long that I don't think so I can do much justice to that, ma'am. But energy, agriculture, art and culture, industry, women and child development ministry also she has been there. And ma'am also represented India at different bilateral and multilateral international fora across and plus has dealt and involved with several UN organizations like UNICEF, UNESCO, UNV, WHO. And at the UN, she's also the member of United Nations Committee of Experts and of Public Administration in New York. And she has been reporter of the committee in 2018. And a lot of is that ma'am is, she has been part in the forefront of a lot of initiatives in the country. And especially, let me also mention, she is the first woman director and the only on to date of the prestigious Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration in Missouri that trains officers of civil services of the Government of India and Bhutan. And she retired in last year. And ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, for a very fulsome introduction. The plenary has the theme of Build Back Better with Girls. As I read and reread the topic, the relevance and the import of each word of this theme has come back to my mind yet again, as also the roles and the responsibilities that it casts upon all the players. For girls, we build, that is construct, we shape, we bring together. We build back. Building is in continuum. It's forward-looking, it's forward-moving to the future, but it's not detached, divorced, or standalone. We build back better. We enhance, we boost, we progress. We make it fit and fitter for purpose. And we build back better with girls. The with is absolutely my favorite. We work not just for girls, but we work with girls for girls. The inclusion, the participation, and the empowerment are all contained in this word with. With that, we begin this session of Build Back Better with Girls. It is a power-packed plenary. There were to be 5 speakers. We have 4 speakers now, and it's power-packed not just because of the numbers, the number of panelists, but more so because of the standing and the credentials of each panelist who are here with us today. I may, as discussed with my colleagues on the days today during tea break, follow the format. My apologies to our colleagues who are joining us virtually, but I hope that would work well for you as well. We have a rendition by each participant, questions, if any. I guess largely that will fall either to my lot or to the lot of my plan colleagues sitting here. Is there a way that the participants virtually can key in questions? They can. So can we offer them that opportunity?
We have some to moderate, so we can get the question if the question comes from the participants. We'll bring it to you.
That will be excellent if we can manage and cope with that. So the speaker speaks, we have questions, and I would then request each speaker to make recommendations post the questions that come to us. If this is acceptable, may we proceed forward? Our first session is Building Back Better for Improving Health, Nutrition, and Hygiene of Women and Girls. Our panelist, Dr. Indira Chakravarti, surely she needs no introduction, but following the convention, a Padma Shri, decorated with several other awards, a public health specialist with manifold publications to her credit. Dr. Indira Chakravarti, I invite you for your presentation on this topic, keeping in mind that malnutrition influences lack of progress in at least 14 of the 17 SDGs that the countries work on. Dr. Indira Chakravarti.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you as chair. I know your husband for many years, but it's really a pleasure to know you today. It's a pleasure and an honor. I'm really grateful to Dr. Muhammad Asif for asking me to come for this session for the simple reason that this is absolutely the right time to have a topic which you call Build Back Better. We have come through an extremely difficult time for nearly 2 years, 1.5 years, and we really don't know yet what's going to happen in future. I mean, we don't know whether we're over with the pandemic or we don't know whether something else is going to come along, but people are still jittery. While South Africa says that Omicron is not a problem, but countries are closing down flights, countries are putting new tests in place. Everybody's jittery, everybody's scared, everybody's nervous of what happened after the pandemic. Therefore, I think the insecurity is still there, is still very much there. So I think this is the right time to have a conversation which you call Build Back Better. It is not only for past is gone. I mean, we can't do anything what happened during pandemic, but we can do something for the future. And if something else happens like that, or nothing happens, but we are still nervous, we are still jittery, a conversation like this is really going to strengthen the whole society. Unless the society is strengthened, agenda cannot be strengthened. So the whole society has to understand the situation, has to cope with it, has to know the manageable instincts that are involved in it. And for that, women, of course, are the major pillars, but they can't stand alone. We must understand that. It's a whole society which needs strengthening. And this is the very right time. Asif, I really congratulate you for choosing this. This is kind of a juncture. We have just got over something. We don't know what's holding for us in future. It's a very shaky, very wavy time for us to decide. And I think you're absolutely, nobody else, I think, have ever thought of this, of having something which you call build back better. So you have to build on it. You have to back up on what you've experienced and do better in future, even if a pandemic happens now. We have got to face it properly. We have to face it better. We have to see to it that all protections are given to the society as a whole and to women. This is how I start with. I'll just go into my topic is on health, nutrition, and hygiene. I will not go into just the COVID situation, but try to highlight the weak issues that we have on these topics on health, hygiene, health and nutrition and hygiene, which are the weak areas where you think we must zoom in and try to help. I think that's what, and I've mostly depended on the NFHS 5, NFHS 4 data and some other databases, CNN and quite a few, and the Ministry of Health data, to do a very short, crisp analysis to tell you what are the kind of things. I think the first thing that comes when we think of women is that what are the times of her life that she needs support, the maximum support. I personally felt that the woman is expecting when she's pregnant. It's a very normal thing. Getting pregnant is a very normal thing in a woman's life. Everybody has to go through it. But that is a period possibly she needs the maximum support, because it's kind of a situation where she's vulnerable to many issues. She's building another life within her. So that new life has to be protected. She's sharing all her resources with the child that she's growing. So that is the time she's most vulnerable to anything that happens, and she must be given maximum support during the time she's pregnant. I'm not saying she doesn't need support of any other time, but that's the time she needs a critical, targeted support on certain issues. The NFHS, I've compared between NFHS 3, 4, and 5, all the three NFHS, not just 4 and 5, because we find that 4 was kind of, 5 started when the pandemic had started, 4 was tapering off at that time, and 3 was a totally free independent period where we had not faced any problem. If you look into it, we find that most of these the indicators that for a pregnancy, for a woman who's pregnant, that NFHS 3, 4, 5 used, 4, 5, all of them, 3, a couple of them less. Like what are the antenatal cares they were getting, whether they were getting tetanus, where the folic acid supplementation was given on time, did they have my mother-child protection cards issued to them, did they have postnatal care from a registered practitioner or from a hospital, how much did they spend on it, what kind of support was given when the baby was born at home, who came to deliver the baby, after delivery was the baby taken to the health facility within 24 hours. There's several indicators which have NFHS 4 and 5 are used, and quite a few of them NFHS 3. We find all of them have improved. Most of them have improved between 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. But I think the maximum improvement took place in institutional birth and the postnatal care between 3 and 4. Between 3 and 4, but that wasn't so much during 4 and 5. So the postnatal care and the institutional birth, which is zooming up in during NFHS 3 to 4, 4 to 5, there was a development, but not to that log effect. So these are the two issues which possibly got a little backstepped during the 4 and 5 transition. Looking into all the scenarios, all of them improved, but in spite of that, issues that I feel they did improve, but they're still very low, like it's only 26%. For folic acid, given to mothers for 180 days. If you look to the 100 days, yes, it's not too bad, 44%. But when you look into the full coverage of 180 days, it's very little. So there's one point of somehow the sustainability of getting folic acid wasn't there. And later on, when I come to the anemia data, you will find that actually it's reflecting an anemia. So folic acid was not being taken, what would I say, sustainably into the entire pregnancy period. That is one point I think we need to look into. And I think another very important thing which I found was that for the antenatal care, mothers went first one visit was not bad, really, 58, nearly 60%. But when you looked into it was nearly much 70%. But when you look into all the 4 antenatal visits, it came down. So again, a question of sustainability. Maybe because they didn't go for the four antenatal care visits, therefore the folic acid intake came down. So they are both linked. So I think what we need to link here is, since Plan is doing so much of work on awareness generation, motivation, one important thing will be to motivate the mothers to have sustainable support from the primary health centers. That is one thing I think is very essential. They start it, but possibly they don't go on with it. They go once and they're happy and they sit at home. So therefore, not only the family also has to support them so that they have the time, they're given off from their work. Maybe they have another child they have to take care, they have to cook for the house. Some of the women have to go to the field. So in spite of that, they should be motivated to go to that entire period of pregnancy. They need to be covered, need to be sustainably covered, is I think one issue that I think is very, very essential. And with the COVID coming in, we know lockdowns, doctors not being there, nurses not being there, midwives not being there, ashas not being there. There has been a gap. So I think now if you do the NFHS 6 later on, because actually though you say NFHS 5 is 20, till 21 is really not so. If you look into it, data was all collected much before that. Possibly the next one will show an even greater gap. I'm not sure. It might, unless they pick up very soon now. So I think this is one thing, is that the contact between the mothers and the primary health centers need to be made more sustainable. That's one thing I thought was very important. When you look into and link to mother's health, what is very important is how is a newborn baby's health. And you know, the low birth weight hasn't improved much, as we all know, over the last couple of years, has not improved much. If you look into the immediate improvements like national neonatal mortality rate, it has improved, but very marginally. It's only 29 to 24, very marginal. If you look at the infant mortality rate, it's 40 earlier, 57 in NFHS 3, 40 plus in NFHS 4, and 35. Hasn't improved much. And having an infant mortality rate of double digit is something we should be ashamed of compared to most of the countries. And having 35, which were actually much more than many of the other developed countries. So I think even the child's health post-birth, in a child also you find, I'm not going into the under 5, that's way later, that has other implications on that. But the two immediate things, neonatal mortality rate and the infant mortality rate and the low birth weight. These three are immediate impact on the child or what mother's health was. So mother has an important role to play on these 3 indicators. So I think once again, we have to come into the reasons, I'll come later on. It's very important that we take care of the mother's health to see to it that the immediate baby's health is like these 3 indicators are really improved. So that's my second understanding. The third thing that I would like to sort of talk about is what are the health and nutrition indicators? What is that, health and nutrition indicators? If you look at the health and nutrition indicators, if you look at the BMI of the men and women, if you compare right now between 3, 4, and 5, we find that between 3 and 4, there was some measurable change of 34 to 20 and 35 to 22. It really improved quite a bit. Coming to NFHS 5, improvement is very marginal. It is only 16 in men and 18.7 and 19 in women. These are the women who did not reach the normal BMI, percentage of women who did not reach the normal BMI. So it's still men are about 16, women are about 19. So even reaching the normal BMI rate in women is less than men. So women are more vulnerable even when they become adult to BMI, where the body mass index is concerned. And between 3 and 4, the BMI improved more. Between 4 and 5, improvement was not so much. So it is not that we've improved, but we have not been able to keep that excess trait. So we need to look into that. I'm sure after we'll look into how women got deprived during COVID-19 situation, the BMI in women may not improve much in the next 10, which is 6 or whatever we have in between, but depends on how the country takes off because there are other things which are coming in, just not food, but other things which are coming in. When we look into anemia, it's really a very, 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 we should be ashamed of the anemia situation in the country. I have no problems having worked in nutrition for so many years. We have no, if you look into men and women, men are also anemic, but if you look into women here, women are by far more affected, by far more. If you look at the 15 to 49 years, the whole range of adult women, it was women, the men are right now in NHS 5, men is only 25%, women are 57%, more than double. So in any, like BMI was 16 and 18, so okay, it's bad, but not really that bad. Anemia is more than double. If you look into 15 to 19, the teenagers, if you call them adolescents, we can call them, it's even worse. It's 59%. So why is this anemia? And this, in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare survey, where adolescent anemia was done, the same situation is seen, that about 28% are anemic. Out of that, 40% are girls and 80% are boys. So now it's corroborated by a Ministry of Health, their normal database also, what NHS 4 shows in their span of long surveys, that women are by far, both men are anemic, women are anemic, to an unacceptable range, both. Because even 25% and 31% in men is not acceptable. But in women, 57 and 59% is totally unimaginable. We have to find the reasons why. In spite of having an iron follifer tablet program, which started from 1972 in the country, we had different names for it, but it was all there. It was all there. The anemia control program has been there for years now, has been there for years. You can imagine from 1970 to now, how many years it is. Why is it that we are not able to control anemia? That's something, it's absolutely an enigma, I would say. And that too, why in our country? If you look into Africa, if you look into Botswana, you look into Gava, they're far better than us, far, far better than us. It is not a vegetarian diet, but you find the same kind of situation among vegetarians, among non-vegetarians. You find the same kind of differences. So it's not the diet. What is it? You find anemia even in the very affluent classes. I did as a consultant to WHO, we did a couple of surveys in the United Emirates, very rich country, went to the Al-Azhari hospital, the very expensive hospital, where women come from very sheikh families, where they have no dearth of eating, they have enough dry fruits, enough dry fish, whatever to eat. 70–80% anemic, the pregnant women there. So this is something we need to understand, that it surpasses all classes, all socioeconomic levels, and women are much more affected. So we need to find out what is the reason and how do we overcome it. And of course, I'm not talking about pregnant women at all. They're by far more. If women are so bad, pregnant women are worse than this. Next, I'll come to the reasons later on. We come to food intake. I think one of the anemic causes, iron follifer tablet supplementation program is there, needs to be strengthened, but will not solve the problem. We need much more interventions. We need something else. We need a missing gap. We need to know, like how human beings came, we still don't know that from the one side, we suddenly jumped up. For anemia also, we have a huge missing gap. I think after thousands of years, we are now standing at a point where we don't know why this is happening. Food intake, the state of security, food and nutrition, which you have shared the data with us yesterday from the World Report, indicates that India has the largest food insecure population right now. And of the whole global burden, 22% are in India. It's your report which you shared with me yesterday. And the increase between 2014 and 19 has been nearly 4%. So there's a huge food I wouldn't say food shortage, but food intake problem that is going on. And even you shared the data that out of the 12 states, you find that the consumption of food has reduced in 83% urban areas and 73% rural areas. So in spite of a condition where we had this anemia, this is what has happened during pandemic. So you can predict what may happen. So the food intake has come down, and what shows is that the staple, non-staple balance is gone. So people take more staple and do not take non-staples much. Anemia could rise because iron may not be present in the kind of thing, and staples might have enough phytate, which will remove the anemia from the diet. We really don't know. So there's a situation that staple, non-staple imbalance may also enhance anemia in one situation. And secondly, during this situation of that 22% global burden is here, women suffered much more. Women took much less food than men. Even that's the data you shared with me yesterday. So women took less food, the food was not balanced, and the entire pandemic period went like this. So therefore, one is less calories, one is possibly less micronutrients, less iron. We really don't know what does it mean. So that is another very problematic situation. Fourth, fifth, I'll come to my most favorite thing for which I work for a very long time is WASH. I do a lot of work on WASH. I'm doing a lot of work with Jal Jeevan Mission also now. So what I think, WASH, to me, WASH is one of the major causes of why we have not been able to control anemia. First of all, we had no sanitation for years, open defecation, enough of helminths on our soil, which goes through the feet, as you know, and causes constant intestinal bleeding. So therefore, that's one cause, is that worm infestation could have been a very major cause. Second thing is, if you don't have safe water, what happens is, as you know, diarrhea, if you look at the diarrhea data, is increased from NFHS 3 to NFHS 4, 9 to 9.2, marginal increase. NFHS 3 has come down to 7 point something, very marginal. And in several states, it has not come down, it has increased. So diarrhea has not come down, or diarrhea has come down very marginally. And therefore, what has happened is that when you have diarrhea, I always say diarrhea is like a leaky pot. You give a lot of food inside the pot, but the pot has a hole. So whatever food you give, it goes out. So it's a leaky pot. So no point in giving nutrition to a diarrheic child. So the moment you give nutrition, it's not absorbed, not assimilated, not used, just goes out. It's a total waste. So therefore, what happens? Undernutrition sets in. So therefore, I think diarrhea could be a major cause of why nutrition is not reaching. Worm infestation could be a cause which causes constant bleeding, no matter what. Look at the mother. Mothers has a cyclic bleeding, but this is the constant 24 hours. That's what men are also anemic, getting anemic. So constant worm infestation, which causes bleeding. One other thing which I find, which I think Jal Jeevan Mission might plug it to some extent, is they're getting water at households. Otherwise, if you look into the studies, women walk for hours or minutes or whatever to collect water, and they collect at least 20 liters of water to bring it back home. The amount of energy and time that they spend to walk and bring back, the drudgery that they have. We did a study on this in Sudan with UNICEF support some years back, and then in Nepal, in the mountainous, hilly and the Terai region. And we found that a woman saves about 3 to 4 hours every day if she gets water near her household. And secondly, she at least saves at least 1/3 of the nutritional energy that she eats. In Sudan, they were very deprived. In South Sudan, they were having only about 1,600 calories per day to eat. They didn't have much food. Out of that, we used oxylogs and measured. The lady was spending 800 calories just to collect water from the Kharif. She would go to the Kharif, collect the water and come back. Took 6 to 8 hours. So the amount of energy she spends, she will get malnourished. She's eating 1,600 calories, spending 800 just to get water. So therefore, she's only getting 800 for herself. And that too, remarkable women, I must say. I fell in love with the women in Sudan. No complaints, smiles all the time. Covered faces, lovely eyes, no complaints at all. They're happy doing it. So you see, that is what I think the attitude they were saying, that, I mean, I'm sure men would have complained, walking long, bringing 20 liters, 25 liters of water on their shoulder. They're having postural problems, which is causing delivery problems when they go for deliveries. All that is there, but no complaints. That they're getting water from the family, they're very happy about it. I think that is a remarkable attitude women have, that keeping the family happy, they're happy. They don't make complaint. I think that is very, very important thing, that as if a woman, we should feel proud about that. That in spite of all that, we have that nice, peaceful, happy attitude with whatever tensions may come. So this is what I learned from I learned a lot from the Sudanese women, actually. I learned a lot myself. So this is something, that drudgery, If you can give water to a woman near her house, because only it's women and the girl children who collect water. Usually men never collect water. It's women who collect water. And therefore you save them drudgery, you say, give them more time. That time they can use for resting. They can use it for taking care of their children. They can earn something. In Nepal, they started earning. They started making beads and all that, started earning. So that also helps in supporting nutrition. So I personally feel that giving water and sanitation to a community actually helps the women much more than the men. And therefore, I think in some way, you should add the water sanitation issue into the whole system of linking with supporting women and children. And lastly, I would just come to the last point of the school attendance. School attendance, as we know, that girls has been going up, no doubt, school attendance. But during the pandemic time, it had come down. And therefore, I think what we thought was educating girls, taking them to schools will also have a very positive impact on their entire health and nutrition scenario. It is not just because they're going to the school, but it generates an awareness, a feeling of knowing what she needs, what she wants to do. Right now at the NFHS 3 shows that they have improved it. They go about 70% women, girls for the last 6 years data go to schools, but we really don't know what has been the dropout rate. We really don't know what has been the dropout rate and what happens eventually when she reaches adolescence. So I think these are a couple of issues which I thought just not health and nutrition, but the supportive issues, ma'am, which would possibly help them to know. But it's most important that the women, what was mentioned in the morning, attitude is very, very important. And it is very critical at this point of time that if a woman herself wants to protect herself, if he knows that anemia is there and that's going to cause the child under infant mortality will increase, the neonatal mortality is going to be problematic, birth weight is going to low. So these awarenesses, if we can build in a woman, or what are not only her, but a child, can happen. I'm sure this in the women's mindset, that is a very, very critical thing. And but I feel women can do what they want to do. They have the strength and the tenacity, possibly more than men, to endure, to overcome, and to implement what they want to do. Women possibly have a greater power. If I just have a small story to say when I'm finishing this, I want to share a little bit of my personal information on this about my mother. My father comes from a very affluent, very well-known Bengali family in East Bengal, now West Bengal. He was a very, very well-known chest specialist, very well internationally known doctor of chest specialist. My mother comes from a very mediocre rural family, from a remote area of Udupi, we used to call him Karnataka. I mean, my mother is a Kannadiga, my father is a Bengali, from Udupi, which is now, of course, very well known as Manipal. So she comes from there. She was born in 1909, you can understand. And at her time, the girls' school was only till class 4, no classes after that. So she was a very bright child. So after class 4, there was no girls' school, but she insisted that she wants to go to school. And her aunt was, she lost her father when she was 2.5 years old. So family was quite in poverty. So the aunt was bringing her up. So aunt supported her. She went to a boys' school from class 5. And she said how she used to go into the class with the boys and go with the teacher and sit with the back to the boys on teacher's small little table, come back to teacher's room, sit in the corner till the next teacher will take her. No toilets, no nothing. So she passed matriculation, stood first. And then she went to do her college in Mangalore. So every day stayed with somebody, every day 5 miles, she said, walk to go to the college and come back. No eating out, staunch vegetarian. She was a Tulu actually, staunch vegetarian. And then she passed again, she stood first in the ISC. And then it was, there was a gentleman in the village. He used to take a cycle, local doctor, treating people. So he got very fond of my mother. His name was Dr. Madhav Pai, who set up the Manipal, whole system of Manipal that you have today. Kasturba Gandhi Medical College, Engineering College and all that. So Dr. Madhav Pai was there. He was just a cycle going local physician that time. he insisted to the family that let her go for medicine. So she got admitted in Madras Medical College, the second batch of lady medical doctors from Madras Medical College. She stood first in MBBS, became the Goodeve Scholar. So coming from a very mediocre family, which is the strength of mine, all sisters, everybody got married. She was all by herself, not married. She joined the British Medical Service, was in Karachi, a staunch vegetarian lady. Till the day she died, she had strong friends in Pakistan. She never left, very, very strong. They used to come and stay with us. She's a strong vegetarian. They would cook vegetarian food for her, the kind of relationship we grew so many years back. And then I lost her some years back. Then she joined the All Indians Medical. She came for studying in Calcutta, met my father. My father, from a very different background, very outgoing family, was in abroad, and a very mediocre family girl, vegetarian, staunch, different outlook. They married. And then we have two sisters, we are there now. So what I can say is that even so many years back, I lost when she was 102 in 2011. You can understand more than 100 years back, the girls could still do it. So in a way, when I think of our mother, that it's an attitude. If women have the capability and the strength and possibly the resilience to do something when they want to do it. So I've learned this from my mother, and I always quote saying that women as human beings are possibly much stronger than men to do things when they want to do. Thank you. Thank you. The story was too long, or was it okay?
In fact, the personal details always help to pepper and bring forth a point.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for that. What has been very interesting is the way you took us through the data of the NFHS 3, 4, 5, built the evaluation across the 3 surveys, and brought it to us in a manner that enabled us to understand the various dimensions of health, hygiene, nutrition for girls and women. Also, am I wrong, or do I get a sense that there is a lot of concern regarding these dimensions, particularly in the context of the National Family Health Survey 5? Is it, did I get it wrong? Or is there a sense of alarm and despondency about NFHS 5? Or are there silver linings to the data that is before us in December 2020?
The data shows an overall improvement. So there definitely is a silver lining in the cloud. There is a definite improvement in everything what you look into, excepting maybe the ARI didn't improve, the acute respiratory tract infection, which was possibly 2.7 and 2.8, but that's understandable. That's also in quite a bit related to hygiene issues. But the thing is, the silver lining is that everything has been improving. But as I mentioned, a couple of them didn't improve to the extent they were improving between 3 and 4. They're still improving, but not, the log effect is not there. It's not plateaued off. It's still going up, but not that sharply. And I think one thing I should mention here, that the water sanitation part, which I was mentioning to you, that the moment you have access to enough water and clean water, automatically hygiene improves. Because you don't curb on using water. You wash your hands more frequently, you wash your food more properly, because food safety becomes a huge problem. I work a lot in food safety. I work on street foods, actually. So the moment you get, I found in street food sector also, enough water means much better hygiene. Because people don't have to, the moment you have to collect water from far away, you use little of it because you want to save. But the moment you have water at home, or you have access to enough water, you use it. The amount you want to use. You wash your hands, you wash your food, you know, whatever necessary. The moment you have proper hygiene, automatically many of these waterborne diseases and even others like ARI, acute respiratory tract infection, is not a waterborne disease, but it definitely improves. We did a relatively large study, 2018-19, in several districts of West Bengal, looking after water supply was given to them, solar system water supplied in very arid zones. And we found there was a universal improvement. Of course, tuberculosis didn't improve because that's a different kind of infection, but ARI did improve, acute respiratory tract infection. Anemia improved, everything improved. So the moment you have more water, more hygiene. So we are now all waiting. Swachh Bharat has been completed to some extent. It's not universal sanitation, but sanitation has increased. Jal Jeevan Mission, if it can really give the dues, like water in every household, enough water, water close to your household. If these two can be given, hygiene is expected to improve. And the moment hygiene improves, it's a very lot of studies, a lot of meta-analysis has been done. The improvement of hygiene is linked to overall reduction of all kinds of diseases, not just waterborne diseases. So hygiene is actually a most critical fact, that hygiene, proper hand washing, using soap, properly washing, these are issues which are critically important. So hygiene, improvement of hygiene is possibly a thing, but the silver lining, as you say, is being a very much a wash person. I feel that the more than silver lining to us could be the Jal Jeevan Mission. Now that Swachh Bharat is done, Jal Jeevan Mission has come in. If the sanitation is not there, water cannot be clean. So I think this, as you say, that possibly, and the pandemic is going to pull down, the water sanitation is going to pull it up. So we don't know what kind of tug of war is eventually going to happen at the end of it. But hopefully, I think we will, we think it's going to improve. At least we think it's going to improve. And maybe a third wave will not come. That's the only thing. And Omicron is not going to be so serious.
So I do hope your words come true on that.
I don't know.
And
really
harking back to NFHS 5, and if I recall, it does indicate a positive trend
Yes.
and an increase in coverage of
Sure,
what are
sure.
called the
There's no doubt
nutrition
about it.
sensitive indicators.
No doubt about the accepting anemia.
And wash.
Anemia has not improved, it's declined.
And
Anemia has not
yes,
improved.
and
Not
the
improved.
emphasis on wash, of course, and the government programs that have worked beyond the essential nutrition initiatives into the special
But
initiatives.
anemia is still a very negative issue. It's not improved.
I wonder if we have a possibility to take in some questions from the participants.
We left the message, but we have not got it. So once we get the question, we'll.
So any questions around the table here?
At this stage. Not from the participants, but.
I'm asking around in the room here. So Asif, would you come in briefly just to share what is the work of PLAN? Very briefly in terms of health, hygiene and wash initiatives. Just for us to bring in how the NGOs and our organization is contributing to the effort.
Yeah. So at PLAN, we have been working on all these three agendas very intensively. And the reason being that, as Dr. Indira earlier mentioned, that health, hygiene, and nutrition are interrelated, interconnected, and they have enormous significance for child development, for maternal development, and for larger health, particularly with a gender, if you're looking at a gender lens intervention plan. What we in PLAN India have been doing is we're working on nutrition specifically, because that's an important conversation for this session. We have been working in terms of creating access to nutrition wherever there is a challenge of nutrition not being available. Either the access is created directly by PLAN, very limited, but mostly by helping people who have nutrition stress to access government entitlements, because there are a number of government schemes which are there, which are meant for providing nutritional access, both nutrition and micronutrient supplementation as well. So one of our effort is towards creating access. Another is through awareness, because a lot of time it's not so much about lack of food, it's lack of knowledge about what constitutes quality nutrition for different sections or different members of the family. What is quality nutrition for the child, for the adolescent girls, for pregnant and lactating mothers. So bringing awareness through various means, either directly by plan staff members at the front line or working indirectly through Anganwadi workers, building their capabilities so that they can do that. So those are some of the efforts we are doing. And again, linked to that is the hygiene part. Hand washing remains a very important part of our effort, creating environmental sanitation through toilets, through both at domestic and public spaces, have been an important part of our effort towards driving personal and community hygiene practices. And on the public health front, we're working on both reproductive, maternal, child health, and adolescent issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Dr. Chakravarti.
Sif has put it beautifully, what they are doing in a nutshell, possibly everything. But I can just add, because you had that Ricket supported project, nutrition project, project in I think Maharashtra's areas. And I think what they tried there in that project, because I was a little bit involved with that, what they did in that was a very comprehensive thing. It was, they built up the latrines, they looked into water supply, they gave a lot of hygiene education. So even WASH was supported in a big way. And along with that, of course, primary healthcare centers, ICDS centers were developed. And so it was a very comprehensive project, short project, but a very comprehensive project. And if you look into the indicators which came out on the second time, which I had the chance to look into, they just sent me to have a look at it, the records. And what I found was there has been a remarkable improvement. There was a remarkable improvement, which is still, so it was just kind of, in certain issues, they were really, I mean, unexpected improvement. Even anemia, as a matter of fact, had started improving. So some of these issues which you look into that project, that a comprehensive package which PLENARY tried for this project was giving not just food, but a comprehensive thing. But then COVID came in, but in spite of COVID, the work was going on. But because of this COVID, it was very difficult to continue with a project like that. I mean, you have to give, because the state really stopped the whole district administration through the district administration. And this is something which I think PLAN has initiated, which is a very wonderful step of giving comprehensive care towards development of nutrition. So the target is nutrition, but the care is comprehensive, isn't it? That's what, if I can. Yes. So I think that's a very, very remarkable thing, which, things like that will only improve, I personally believe, things like anemia. Things like just the targeting on food, but the entire issue of a comprehensive.
Certainly your words would be very encouraging for the PLAN team, which is working through such programs. And Asif, I owe you a note of apology for pulling you in without.
But you did beautifully. So beautiful.
And may I say I'm going to continue doing it. Dr. Chakravarti, you have worked at the ground level with women very intensively. I'm just wondering, you said that the Sudanese women continue to smile, though they lug water over miles. And it's so typical also of the hoe and spade culture, our hills, where the women are basically tasked with most chores. What if the women smiled a little less and somewhere said that come on board and share the responsibilities? I think we need to put up our feet as well. Why women don't think of raising issues like that? Why do they take what they have to do as something they have to carry on with?
you give me point to think. You see, I'm much older than you, so maybe both my granddaughters are always after me, saying, Tummy, you have dinosaurus age thinking. They're all the time fighting with them. My two granddaughters, I'm very, very fond of them. They're very fond of me, but we fight all the time. They say, my thinking is dinosaurus age, just imagine. So whatever it is, so what I feel is the modern girls nowadays, even maybe in our time, we started thinking that they need to do what men also do. I mean, they are equals in every way. So they would go and do what men can do. Actually, they can do better, to be very honest. They can do better than what men can do. Look into medical colleges, even engineering, architecture colleges now. Women do very well, there's no doubt about that. But I think with all that, women know they are more capable. Today the women knows that she is much more capable. But at the same time, and she does it. So I think now the women have started balancing out both, if you look into it. And I think I would not say women should stop smiling. I think they should balance it out with a smile. Because smile always helps, I think, takes off tension, takes off all the pressure. So they should do it with a smile, but balancing out, which I think possibly now, most of the women work in some way or the other. Even if they're housewives, they do something at home. So most of the women work, and women who don't work are housewives. Many a time it is not because of compulsion, because they want to. Because they like to be at home, they want to do things at home, they want to keep the home properly, they want to do things which if they go out, they can't do things. So it happens at times. And I will tell you, sometimes it's working. My daughter-in-law, during the pandemic time, she had to do everything at home. She couldn't get maids or servants coming in. But she was actually quite happy because she didn't have to go to work. She's enjoying, which I didn't do things for all my life I wanted to do. I'm doing it now. So I said, but you are cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing everything. She knew in spite of that, my two girls are getting a lot of my company. So I can teach them properly. I can do, I don't know, I think the mindset is a very
So the positivity framework that we spoke of in the morning.
Positivity framework, and they're just, and I think I would like women still to smile. If they do something, do it with a smile. Don't grudge and do it. I think it's, and women usually don't grudge. I don't know, for a family, women don't grudge, maybe.
So I can see on the screen that Dr. Neelam Singh and Soumya have also, they are with us. But before I move on to Dr. Neelam Singh, can I request you in about a minute for quick recommendations, if you have any?
Yeah, I think I sort of did that in a way. First was that pregnant women should be more motivated because the COVID situation is anyway going to create a gap between themselves and the health coverage. So it should be seen that the women are motivated to continue, like as I said, 4 antenatal visits. So they should be motivated to continue with the full coverages in spite of COVID, in spite of health centers closure. So full coverage by pregnant women for all inputs that they're eligible and they need. They should be motivated to do it, not piecemeal, but the entire coverage factor is very, very important. And number 2 will be that especially for, I didn't talk of nutrition session later on, that nutrition hasn't improved. It has improved, but not to the extent that is expected. Especially anemia has come down. So specific programs should be taken, which I feel should be comprehensive inputs. Not just food, not just iron tablet, not just women, a comprehensive program of giving inputs to women and men both possibly to improve the anemia and see how it works. Did it work or not?
Thank you. So the next theme in the plenary is empowering girls to get equal. Our panelist is Dr. Neelam Singh. She joins us virtually. She is the secretary and the chief functionary of Vatsalya, a gynae by profession, but a social entrepreneur by choice, and may I say by commitment. An expert in gender and adolescent health issues, Neelam brings an experience of more than 25 years in the sector to this conference. Welcome on board. And so before I bring you in, a quote to set the tone. I do not wish women to have power over men, but over themselves. Not my words, Mary Wollstonecraft, a feminist writer, if I may say so. Dr. Neelam Singh.
Thank you so much, the respected chair and my co-panelists, all very knowledgeable co-panelists, I would say. I would like to dedicate this session to Prachi, Mansi, Deepika, and whosoever, there was one more name. They were the real empowered girls. And I would not like them to be deprived of the understanding of discussion which is happening here. So I would try and speak in mixed language. And thanks to Bollywood that everybody now understands Hindi, larger part of the India understand Hindi. So I would use the language so that all the girls who are connected as well as the team members of PLAN, they are sitting on the ground, they are connected to this Plan for Every Child conference. So they are not deprived of the understanding. I'm a practitioner on ground. मैं इतने सालों से मैडम ने भी कहा 25 साल का experience. What brought me to this sector was sex selective elimination of girls in womb. As a gynec practitioner, I noticed the women coming and sitting in front of me asking for a male child and determination of sex in womb. It was way back 95 when the technology of ultrasound had just come in the country, and it was being more than used, it was being abused. तो उस समय से मैंने काम करना शुरू किया क्योंकि this was very very upsetting. तो सबसे पहले तो लड़कियां बचनी चाहिए और फिर उनकी empowerment चाहिए. तो ये सेशन क्योंकि मैं उन बहुत empowered 3-4 लड़कियों को हमने अभी सुना, तो उनकी दृष्टि से ही मैं सारी बात करना चाहती हूँ. और मेरी प्रीवियस स्पीकर डॉक्टर इंदिरा ने जो अभी एनीमिया की बात कही, क्योंकि मैं हेल्थ में भी बहुत सारा, सो आई आस्क फॉर द एक्सक्यूज फ्रॉम माय चेयर कि मैं इस विषय पे जो एनीमिया की इतनी चर्चा हुई पिछले सत्र में, मैं उसके बारे में भी कुछ जरूर कहना चाहूंगी. With UNICEF, I think I did this operational research, this Vatsalya, my organization, for 6 long years. जिसमें भी proved that once a week iron tablet to the adolescent girls can improve her hemoglobin by 2 g%. Dr. Indira, you must have heard this Umang program, which got published in Nutrition Bulletin in 2019 along with Sheila Veer. I was a co-author of that chapter. It proved the problem is the supply chain management, because there are a lot of levels through which this iron reaches to these adolescent girls, which got disinterrupted during COVID times. तो उस वजह से जो इम्प्रूवमेंट अभी हमें 2005 NFHS में बहुत नहीं दिख रही है, वो एक कारण है. एंड दूसरा मुझे लगता है जो बड़ा कारण है वो ये, this is a issue of 2 big problems here. One is supply chain management and the other is behavior change. Why should I eat iron? हम लोग ये समझते और जानते रहे कम्युनिटी में कि आयरन तो प्रेग्नेंट वुमेन के खाने की चीज है, तो ये लड़कियों को क्यों दिया जा रहा है? सो व्हाट बेनिफिट? सो हमारे फ्रंट लाइन वर्कर्स, दे फेल्ड टू एड्रेस द बेनिफिट ऑफ इट, व्हिच प्रमोट्स द बिहेवियर चेंज, एंड देन देयर इज सप्लाई चेंज. I don't want to go into that because that's not my issue, but you know, I couldn't just, because that is a very passionate issue for me, because I know as a gynecologist, a lot of women die out of hemorrhage during delivery and pregnancy. So that figure. The two other points which I would like to, because this is such a august gathering, and I want to bring in those points. One is that every other indicator of health has improved in NFHS 5, which very rightly Dr. Indira has said it so elaborately, but few things have, you know, the obesity has increased, which is not in favor of the healthy indicator. And there are others which have been taken care for the first time in the country. Cancer screening and breast cancer screening and cervical screening. So, they are just 1.4 and 0.4% women in this country have been screened for breast and cervical cancer, which is a very, very bad figure for us, which need to be taken care of. I'm sorry for jumping into this. I think I'm going to talk about empowering girls to get equal. So I think inequals can't be treated equally. They can't ever be treated equally. So there is a problem. So we need to understand who gives us power, from where this power comes to be treated equally. So halanki this gathering is very, very august gathering. Everybody knows things, but I would still like to reiterate. हमारे संविधान या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने हमें किस तरह की पावर दी है, लड़कियों को, महिलाओं को किस तरह की पावर दी है. और मैं समझती हूँ कि दिस इज फॉर द वाइडर ऑडियंस विच इज ऑन द ग्राउंड, इसलिए मैं इनका जिक्र करना चाहती हूँ. आर्टिकल 15 विच गिव्स प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन on the ground of gender and caste and religion, we all know. Then Article 19A, which talks of freedom of speech. So I think Indira ma'am, the Sudan women should have complained. They did not complain. They should have complained. And we want all the girls who are listening to us that we should start complaining, asking for, because that is we have to lean in what we need and we need to express. I mean, I'm very, very surprised. I was really surprised this morning when a lady who studied architecture in Roorkee Engineering College, she's a government officer, very senior officer. She was bleeding for a month. She did not tell her husband because she said that, you know, the husband said this is all right. So at times, I feel that the kind of education we get is not enough, because that does not always gives us expression. Expression and speaking up is very important. So that's how I'm quoting this Article 19A, where we talk of freedom of speech, of course, to a reasonable extent. Then Article 16B talks of equality of opportunity. So when we say for empowering girls, the courses which are being run by the skill development mission and everything, doll making, soft toy making, beauty parlor course, embroidery course, sewing course to the girls, and not the non-traditional skills. Equal opportunity for employment and livelihood, and pursue their passion. To practice any profession is talked of in Article 19G. So I think that's our right. But you know, the mindset of people who are making the programs, the policies, I think we need to somewhere indulge in there to make this understanding. So similarly, Article 19B talks of assemble peacefully. And in my experience, because I've been working with adolescents for many, many years, मुझे लगता है कि सबसे पहले adolescents को to give them a voice, their collective is very important. So group making of adolescents is very, very important to empower them, so that we can, empowerment is nothing but, I mean, to me, it is like giving someone, making someone strong and more confident, so that one is able to, especially in terms of taking care of controlling their lives and claiming their rights. So this skill comes in when you practice it. So it's a process. It takes time, and you can't just inject empowerment into someone. So this is a process, and it has a lot of ingredients to it. And these ingredients are to be seen and observed and facilitated. You know, the empowerment is within. The girls need to realize that they have the power. It's only that they have not realized it. सब लड़कियां जो सुन रही हैं यहाँ, वो देखें कि उनके पास बहुत सारी योग्यताएं हैं, उनके पास क्षमताएं हैं, सिर्फ ये कि उन्होंने पहचाना नहीं है कि उनके पास हैं. तो उन्हें कहीं ना कहीं इसको रियलाइज करना होगा. एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस लाइक प्लान, ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस लाइक वात्सल्य, we need to facilitate these girls so that this process of empowerment gets facilitated, and all the ingredients. I would like to speak about these ingredients also. वो समझें कि वो किस तरह से एम्पावर हो सकती हैं। और मैं इसमें यहाँ थोड़ा उदाहरण लेना चाहूंगी NFHS के कुछ जो हमारे पास इंडिकेटर्स अभी हमें मिले हैं कि वो इंग्रेडिएंट्स क्या हैं एम्पावरमेंट के लिए, और उनकी प्रोग्रेस हमारी अभी हम नापते हैं तो वो कैसी है। और मुझे खुशी है कि जब हम SDG की बात करते हैं, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स, so now we have a pinpoint sharp goal for us in the form of SDG 5, which talks of these ingredients. And once we have very specifically, we speak of them, I think we measure them also. And measuring these ingredients is very, very important so that we can understand what progress are we making. So I would like to say a few from the NFHS 5. I think women with more than 10 years schooling has increased from 32.9 to 39 points. So 6 points it has increased, which is very important because जितने साल की महिलाओं की या लड़कियों की स्कूल में अटेंडेंस होती है, उतने डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल है ये बच्चों की लॉन्जिविटी, देयर एजुकेशन, देयर हेल्थ से डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड है। सो इसलिए औरतों का स्कूल में रहना, अभी भी अगर इस फिगर को मैं देखती हूँ तो मैं ऐसे नहीं देखती कि 40% औरतें 10 साल की स्कूलिंग कर रही हैं देश में। मैं ऐसे देखती हूँ कि 60% देश की महिलाएं ऐसी हैं जो अभी 10 साल की एजुकेशन नहीं प्राप्त कर रही हैं। Internet use is 30.6% only. Internet use is something which is very, very powerful because उसके माध्यम से बहुत सारी information आपको मिलती है। तो अभी 70% औरतों के पास अभी एक्सेस नहीं है। इसी तरह मोबाइल का यूज हैज इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 37% to 46.5%, which is very good. बट कोविड के दौरान बहुत सारे सर्वेज हुए हैं जिन्होंने बताया है कि द वुमेन डज नॉट ओन द फोन, शी ओनली गेट्स इट फॉर ए मोमेंट. द ओनर इज द मैन, ईदर इट इज ए सन और ए ब्रदर और ए हस्बैंड और ए फादर. So that is how a lot of girls could not really study online classes because they were not in possession of these mobile phones. They used to be with their brothers. So mobile phone and I'm very happy that SDG 5B is exactly measuring the access to digital technology by women in the countries, and we can progress, we can measure it. Similarly, bank account, it has a jump from 37 to 75.4%. But my question is, are women using these accounts? Are they making some transaction? Are they allowed to go to the banks, or somebody else is going to the banks? What is about their mobility? But this is also a very happy figure that now at least 75% of our women have their accounts. So this is also something which is very, very important. The next is decision making, household decision making, which has from 81, it has gone up to 87%. But what are the decisions? Is it about what they are going to buy to wear, or what color of paint they're going to have their house painted, or what vegetable will be brought in, or what? So are these decisions critical, or the critical decisions are still in the hand of men? So we need to very clearly understand what is happening on the ground. The other thing, the programs which are there for empowering girls often do not address why it is important to empower girls. Do girls really understand why it is important for them? So we should emphasize that, I mean, there can be a lot of things which we can say, like it is a tool to gender justice. Once you are empowered, you will be able to get justice. But they should understand that country's economic growth is in their hands. So if they really want to contribute to the country's economic growth, they have to participate, they have to empower themselves, they have to participate in it. This will bring in a lot of political stability, we understand, and this will change the world, the community, the family, and this is going to be a big social transformation for all of us. So this benefit of empowering girls has to be brought into. So I think I would say few more things on when I say the ingredients of empowerment. And the most important ingredient, which right now all of us we observed in form of these 4 empowered girls, that they were able to speak. They were able to perceive their environment. They were able to believe and trust their capabilities. And they were able to speak and express what they can do, what they can contribute. This is going to be very, very important, because this is going to give them the confidence to speak for their lives also, to negotiate for their rights in the future. And if I go back to again that one of the health indicators, which I believe Dr. Indira is there and she's an expert in understanding all of this data, I would say the data says that, you know, if we disaggregate the data and we see that the girls who are in the age group of 15 to 17, they were skewed in health, universal health coverage. They were most skewed. They were, in fact, the indicator was poorer from the poorest of the communities' health access. It was only 35.6%. So I think the adolescent focusing on, we can talk of women empowerment, that's also very important, but why focusing on empowerment of girls? Because these girls are in formative years, and they are in the years when if they have this empowerment, they have the negotiating skill. They can negotiate for their rights. They can negotiate when to get married, when to have the first child, how to get the 300 services. It is important for them to have the PNC service. It is important for them to have the iron tablet. It is important for them to have leisure. It is important for them to the sharing of household responsibilities, which we have spoken a lot, and to have a voice expressing in other household decisions, and in fact speaking that, you know, they have a right. They have a right that they have the right which comes to them from Article 19D, that they can move freely. They have the right for mobility, and I am a big advocate for mobility, and this comes from very, very grassroots experience. मैं एक गांव की महिला से बात कर रही थी, जब मैंने पूछा कि आप पढ़ी लिखी हैं, उसने कहा नहीं। मैंने पूछा आपके हस्बैंड पढ़े लिखे हैं, उसने कहा नहीं। फिर जब मैंने पूछा घर में किसकी चलती है, बात किसकी मानी जाती है, तो उसने कहा 2 मिनट सोचा और फिर कहा जाहिर सी बात है मेरे पति की चलती है। मैंने पूछा क्यों, आपके पति की क्यों चलती है? She paused for a moment, she thought it and she said, क्योंकि उनको मालूमात है। So what is this मालूमात? I think the man is more mobile. If you go on the road, you will find a lot of men on the road, and there are some with purpose and there are a lot of them without any purpose. They are sitting, gossiping, smoking, they are talking, they are reading papers, they are having sipping teas. They're just around the dhaba, they are around a motorcycle, they are around a car, they are with friends. But women are always there on the road with a purpose, going to office, coming from office, taking child somewhere, going for shopping, vegetable buying, some purpose, but they're not gossiping. I believe and dream that the day comes when, you know, women are so mobile that they're sitting like men on the roads. The way the men enjoy on the roads, the women are also there, because that is the place where you get a lot of information. And that is how this man becomes he has a lot of malumat.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Dr. Singh, but may I request if you could wind up, since we have 2 more speakers with us?
Yeah, sure, I can. So lastly, I would like to say that how we can actually bring this empowerment. And I said mobility is something which is very, very important to be given the women. I know that once the wash facilities were there at the schools, the girls' attendance in the schools during the menstruation, it increased tremendously. It increased the enrollment of girls the next year. So this kind of small things can bring in mobility. That is very, very important. And last thing I would like to say that for empowering girls, it is very important to bring in a conducive environment, and we have to stop justifying that girls are not allowed to do this, and we have to stop saying that boys will be boys. So these are two things. We have to promote the role models and self-acceptance within the girls. And of course, most important thing is involving men in this discourse and dialogue when we talk of, because unless they are brought in the dialogue, this will not be possible, because there is nobody who is going to give this empowerment to the women. We have to create an environment where these women, they have a space and that environment where they get this empowerment from within, they get motivated and they become empowered in the process of growing up, which is the adolescence. That's how it is important. I'm sorry if I overstepped the time.
Thank you. This has been very gripping. आप constitutional provision से लेकर एक आह्वान दिया है आपने to the younger girls कि आवाज है आपके पास, अपनी आवाज पाइए, पहचानिए और बोलिए, which I think is a key message when we speak about empowerment. Who is to empower? Who empowers whom are the basic questions that come up here. Also, you touched upon the role of civil society and NGOs in what we call the empowerment of the women. With that, I think given the constraint of time, I'll have to skip questions and I would have to move to the next speaker. Maybe if at the end of the presentations by our two speakers, we have time, we can come back to the questions. Our panelist for the theme Achieving Sustainable and Inclusive Development Through Gender Transformative Approaches is Mr. Soumya Guha. He has extensive development and humanitarian leadership experience in West Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, with UN agencies and Plan International. He's currently the Global Director of Gender Transformative Policy and Practice at Plan International. Welcome, Soumya Guha, to this session. And of course, it's complex, it's layered, as also aspirational, what we call gender transformative approaches. We're looking to address power inequities, to understand the root causes of inequities, and create enabling environments. Mr. Guha.
Thank you very much, Aduriji. Namaskar to everyone. I come from Indira Chakravarti, Dr. Indira Chakravarti's town, Calcutta. I'm currently in Calcutta, but I just landed from Lao PDR into Calcutta, so I didn't want to trouble all of you because there's a period of self-monitoring that one has to go through before you come. I'm really, honored to be speaking here. I learned a lot in the last 2 hours, and also from Dr. Neelam Singh, who I really admire. So I will try to keep this short. It's kind of a complex issue, as you said. I mean, if you look at leave no one behind, that's a promise of the Sustainable Development Goals, right? And that was a promise made by government and international civil society in the commitments that they made. Now, we have 9 years to go because the end date is 2030. And it is clear that if we continue on our current trajectory, we will fall short of these goals. What we have to remember, I mean, this session's, the panel thing is building back better with girls. But even to get to a state where we were before the pandemic is a huge challenge. And we have to be honest about that challenge. It has only got more tougher because of COVID. And the statistics are truly sobering and demonstrate the scale of the challenge we have. So 130 million girls worldwide are out of school. During the pandemic, as it started, UNESCO reported that 11 million girls may not come back to school. Now, that was, I think, a far lesser estimate of what the current challenge is. In India, there is a study which says that almost 10 million girls risk not coming back to school. So it's just in India, it's around 10 million. We know that globally, 1 in 5 women are married before their 18th birthday, and intimate partner violence affects 30% girls aged 15 to 19. All of these indicators have increased. And I'm not saying particularly about India, because you have all spoken and you know more about the current context, but globally as well, that's the situation. Now, if you look at what are the challenges, there are 3 major categories of challenge. And our speakers have talked to this. One is definitely harmful social norms, restricted access and resources, but also insufficient laws and policies, which represent the root causes of the barriers that adolescent girls face. So the challenge, the scope of the challenge is actually quite massive, but so is the opportunity. And what I want to try to make a case for in the next 3-4 minutes is that there is actually growing evidence that supports multi-component intervention, so a holistic investment for adolescent girls, not sectoral. Yes, sectoral is important, but we need to see the life cycle of the girl and see and make the case for a holistic multi-component investment. And I'm saying this because we did a study with the Citibank economic section in 10 countries. It included Ghana, Uganda, Mali, El Salvador, Bolivia, India, Lao PDR, from where I'm coming right now, and Egypt. And what the study showed is that if we are able to achieve 100% upper secondary school completion rates by 2030, 100%. That's a big challenge in India, because as many speakers have said, the upper secondary completion rates in India are not that much. But if we can achieve that, it could lift national GDP by 10 percentage points on average compared to the business as usual scenario. So while it may look like a big goal, but it's something that we need to achieve, 100% at least upper secondary school completion rates, thereby picking up the GDP by 10 percentage points. Quite sound economic analysis. And we've worked out the average cost of investing, and that comes to around 105 rupees a day for a girl. It's less than many things that you're buying currently. So that's what we are saying, that we need to make this holistic investment. Another thing that we need to really realize is that girls can accelerate GDP growth through increased spending, and showing girls should not be, we should not see girls only as beneficiaries, but also as consumers and important economic agents. So the ripple effect across society should not be underestimated, especially when we consider that we are pursuing the UN SDGs. And while Dr. Neelam Singh talked about SDG 5, we all know that achieving SDG 5 would actually help us achieve most and impact most of the other SDGs as well. So I will try and summarize this very quickly in terms of 3 things that we should be doing. The first one is that we take a holistic approach to investment and interventions across not only areas of education, health, violence prevention, and economic independence, but over the course of a girl's life, right? It's very important to get this holistic investment plan going. The second, and this has been said many a times in this conference, collaborative approaches are needed between the government, the private sector, the NGOs, and let's utilize the strengths of each sector and resources, as well as very, very importantly, between girls and their families, communities, and the state. And if we continue to act in silo, progress will perhaps also still happen, but will be achieved at a greater cost with less impact and over a longer period of time. So it's very important that we work together. And finally, that there is a need for systemic, long-lasting change that creates an environment in which educated and empowered girls can thrive. So there was something which is called, the women as global growth generators, the WG3 effect. That come up with a set of simple drivers for how this change can happen. And they've said that first, get the basics right. Invest in education, invest in health, including reproductive health, ensure safety, including in the workplace, in a political stable situation, and invest in infrastructure, especially transportation. I think that is what Dr. Neelam Singh was also saying. mobility, which is so crucial. Then get the policies right. Affordable childcare, provision to support flexible work, and maternity provision. So including paid parental leave for men and women. So it's not just the women who are responsible for childcare, right? Men should be equally held responsible and given an opportunity to engage in. That's how good parenting happens. That's how a good family develops. The tax policy. So no tax disincentive for second income. Now, this is something that is also very important for other contexts as well. And child and working tax credit. So in many countries, we are seeing that there is an incentive for children and working for the working tax. Discrimination. So around discrimination, policies to prohibit discrimination in the workplace, in inheritance. I think India is quite progressive in that now daughters have an equal share in the inheritance of the father and the mother, but we need to see implementation as well, and the social norms. Okay, इसको छोड़ देते हैं क्योंकि सो जो बहन का शादी हो गया है वो लोग अपने भाई के लिए अपना प्रॉपर्टी दे देते हैं, right? This is a tendency, and we need to get out of that mentality as well. Public attitudes, so towards women working in the formal economy, so that needs to be positive, and towards women in politics, business, and executive level positions. And finally, I mean, role models, female role models in all sectors. There should be no sector where we shouldn't see women, as leaders. So I will just say that, let's imagine a world where girls are equally seen, they're heard and valued by themselves and by all. And we need to focus on these investment areas. For men, I have a message that let's be humble. Let's try to learn. I mean, I might have a designation which says that you are a director of gender transformation. But whenever I speak with my wife, whenever I interact with my daughters, I realize how little I actually know. And some of the challenges are actually the biggest challenges are always within the family. So how do you actually support the truth in the relationships that are there within the family? How you stand up for rights of women within the family? That's very, very important. So we need to do that. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you for that, Soumya Guha. A lot of recommendations coming out there, but I particularly pick on a holistic approach, break the silos within the government. That's normally how government works. And in case you're looking at empowerment, gender transformation, you need to work, to use the words of Dr. Indira Chakravarti, comprehensively. Work better with civil society, work closely with NGOs. Women as economic agents, surely that's smart finance and co-parenting. The entire emphasis on that. And last but not the least, it begins at home. Gender empowerment, gender transformative approaches are not out there on the street, but they are first in your home, and let's begin to practice over there. And I will have to skip questions again, much as I would like to throw it open. And last but not the least, Mr. Ashok Kumar, ED, Dr. A.V. Baliga Trust. It's a trust with diversified activities and a multidisciplinary approach. Dr. Kumar comes with, again, decades of work for women and children. And other than being the ED of the A.V. Baliga Trust, he wears several other responsibilities as well. The topic is shaping the post-COVID-19 development agenda through girls' education. So relevant. And Dr. Kumar, मेरे को याद आ रही है एक रेडियो की एड आपने जरूर सुनी होगी. माँ बच्ची से कह रही है तूने फिर बस्ता खोल लिया. I don't know how many of you have heard this ad being played on the radio these days. What strikes me is the wariness, the frustration, and the inevitability of not sending the daughter to school, particularly in COVID times, or even educating them at home when they need a digital device or smartphone beti ke liye nahi hai. But also the aspiration and the expectation of the girl child who says, nahi maa, wo radio wale kehte hain ki mujhe phone milega. Dr. Kumar.
distinguished panelists, and all resource persons here sitting. I mean, what could be the best words? Build back better. Post-COVID, it is very important. Let me start my discussion or interaction with you with the statement that the girls will profoundly shape the world if we shape our development agenda in lines of ensuring education of every girl. This is we dream. We have a dream to see each and every girl where we are working to see an education need. So with this, the corona crisis, of course, was a deep and sudden shock we all observed that. And a lot of discussion was around the problems and challenges. What I am going to share with you is that when challenges or problems or crisis can be turned into opportunity. इन बातों को मैं शुरू करूंगा. बहुत सारे आपने देखा, आपने सब झेला कि कितने दर्द दुख और हुए. ये challenges है. We conducted a number of focus group discussions online, offline with thousands of girls during this 1.5 years. And they in fact made a list of 53 problems and the challenges they faced. But at the same time, they shared the positivity they gained during this pandemic, during this corona crisis. मैं उन्हीं की बात को पहले कह देता हूँ, फिर हमने जो कुछ किया या गवर्नमेंट ने किया उसको I will be sharing. शब्द भी उन्हीं के हैं, फोकस ग्रुप डिस्कशन से निकले हैं ये बातें कि समस्याओं को इस प्रकार दूर किया. I mean, if you need any translation, I would be happy to translate it, but these are their words. परिवार के साथ एक साथ बैठकर खाना खाया, गाना गाया, बातें छोटी लगेगी, वीडियो बनाया, साथ में पौधे लगाए, like that, they got the time to spend with the parents, which was a dream pre-pandemic. So this is very important. जैसे कुछ परिवारों ने मोबाइल खरीदा और उन्होंने आपस में समय का बंटवारा किया, the time management with the mobile. और प्लान इंडिया का प्रशंसा किया, तो मैं क्या देता हूं, मैं इसको अदरवाइज नहीं लूंगा. उनको एजुकेशन किट, हाइजीन किट ये सब मिले थे, तो कैसे आपस में वो लोग शेयर किए हैं, तो वो उसको समझा रहे हैं कि हम आपस में मिल के इसको बांट के करते थे. ये जरूर है. उन्होंने यह भी कहा कि हमें झटपट खटपट ये सब होता था, हम भाई बहन आपस में लड़ते थे, कभी मोबाइल के लिए, कभी साथ रहते थे, लेकिन इससे हमारा जो रिलेशनशिप था, जो बॉन्डिंग फैमिली का था आपस में, वो बढ़ता गया था. बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. एजुकेशन को हम लोग सेपरेट देखते नहीं, एजुकेशन को हम लोग देखते हैं कि कैसे वो फिर उनके एम्पावरमेंट का रास्ता बने. ये क्यूट बातें हैं. बच्चों से हम लोगों ने जो 18 साल से करा, पढ़ाई का अलावा हम लोगों ने ड्राइंग करी है, वीडियो बनाया, खाना बनाया, गाना गाया, पौधे लगाए, योगा किया, आपस में खूब बातें की. बड़े भाई बहनों से भी पूछा था और छोटे भाई को बताया भी था, रिश्तेदारों से भी बात की. ये था कि समस्या को कैसे दूर करने की वो कोशिश कर रहे थे. फिर वो बात कर रहे हैं कि परिवार के सदस्य एक साथ वास्तविक समस्या पर बात किए. परिवार के सदस्यों ने आपस में जो भी आर्थिक दिक्कतें हुई उसको कैसे मिलकर करेंगे. कभी खाना कम खाते थे, कभी ऐसे. इन सब चुनौतियों के बाद कैसे पढ़ा, इसके लिए वो बात कर रहे हैं. इस बात में एक बात और है, मैं इससे पहले कि आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर द जेंडर डिस्कोर्स. इन फैक्ट we have been interacting with them offline and online. 41 volunteers all the time interacting with all those girls, exclusively girls, because they were facing the domestic violence, sexual abuse, and various types of abuses we did not know. The another, in fact, they were at risk of cyber bullying. You will be perhaps we will be discussing it in the next session. So the discourse on gender equality and significance of girls having equal opportunities with lives free from discrimination and violence has steadily been gaining prominence now. It received further impetus as articulated in SDG Sustainable Development Goals 4, the quality education, and the SDG 5, that gender equality. And further, the Indian government also has some some baskets with important things. Government initiatives like Swayam, E-Basta, E-Pathshala, and the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Adhyan. They were more active during this. Though they were planned pre-pandemic, but they were more active during the pandemic and post-pandemic. We are associated with them. At the same time, the pandemic has thrown looming challenges before the country as migrant and seasonal workers, street children, children of sex workers, transgenders. Somehow, they were marginalized, but our volunteers regularly interacting with them. What we observed that there were a number of challenges, and then we had a very strong MIS of every girl, every child where we are working. It is 2,000 plus 2,000 plus 1,000. We are working in 14 locations in 6 districts of Delhi. So we have each and every of this information of all those children. The challenge is what we observed while interacting with them, the dropout rate, of course, increased. We all know that the child labor, child marriage, various types of abuses, trauma, depression, and discrimination, lack of digital access, and forced prostitution at many times. So these were the challenges. Then what we did, that the 41 volunteers were trained to interact with all those children we have listed in our MIS, and then providing them offline, online psychosocial counseling or life skill type of things, so that they can cope up with the crisis. Also providing them scholarships, again, thanks to Plan India, cared for every child. So all those who were in the sponsored list, so they got the scholarship, so that they can cope up with that economic crisis also. And then providing education kits, hygiene kits, hybrid education learning centers we started. Those who had access to this digital platform, they were provided those online classes, and those who had not, we conducted sessions with 4 or 5 children all the time, or also their, in fact, friends, their neighbors, helped them in that way. We also started hybrid counseling, and the beauty and the best part of all these practices was the community-based engagement. We have a large number of groups with various age groups, in fact, of children of 10 to 14, 14 to 18, and then 19 to 24, like that, and the women's group, and then men's group, and then youth groups. They all helped during this crisis. They were also being exposed with a number of, in fact, earlier they did not get to be exposed. So they all were on the same platform. Then we started to engage ourselves and the children and the community with the schools, with the government schemes, and with all other agencies like DCPCR and child welfare committees all came to the platform. So what we observed, that even during the crisis, we have the scope for development. We have the rays of light in the darkness. So in that context, we have certain key recommendations based on our observations. To build a healthy, prosperous, and secure future, let us ensure safe and secure school. For every girl, systems must adequately finance, that we observed during closely engaged with children and the school. Make a smart use of technology. They were always at risk for that. So there should be a filter app like things. You have a number of apps. So if you develop like any filter apps, or you can name it other way, so that they can't access those obscene channels and obscene scenes. So it is very important. A number of cases came to her. And also protect teachers. They were less paid. A number of private schools were closed. I'm not in favor of private schools, but those children were dropped out. though the number of children in government schools increased, but those a number 50% of children and 50% or perhaps 100% of some small private schools teachers were in fact nowhere. Ensure teachers make home visits if located within the community or contact children through telephone conversations so that children are connected with the teachers, peer, and school systems. Community-led initiatives for engaging children, especially the young child, creatively, so that they are not denied early care and development during the pandemic. Wherever possible, safe spaces for children should be set up within the community. For social emotional health as well as recreational and educational activities in small groups, of course for the nutrition purpose also, because it was totally denied during the extreme stage of this pandemic. TV and radio programs should be started where children in remote areas could also access and remain connected with educational activities, not necessarily related to syllabus. Government should initiate special programs and support aspirational districts, states, so that support mechanism besides online learning could be set up across the country so that children are connected, particularly children belonging to the marginalized sections I have already discussed. And more emphasis should be given on engaging children meaningfully and creatively rather than measuring learning outcomes. This will also cater to the social and emotional learning to face anxiety and fear emerging amidst the crisis. Thank you.
Dr. Kumar, for outlining the challenges, bringing in the recommendations, also bringing in your ground experience. हमारे लिए इस टॉपिक को समझना सरल हो गया क्योंकि आपने बताया कि आपने किस तरह, आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने किस तरह इस कोविड के दौरान गर्ल एजुकेशन के लिए कार्य किया. आपका बहुत शुक्रिया. They say all good things come to a close, so must this session. I thank all my 4 panelists for being here, for sharing their insights, their experiences, for the recommendations. It has greatly enriched the discussion on this theme of building back better with girls. I conclude with 2 observations. Firstly, to my mind, patriarchy, which is at the crux of empowerment of women, is more embedded in the female mind and the psyche and is perpetuated more by women themselves. And my second observation is, you have to reach the minds of those whom you want to empower. I'll give a very brief example. Ages ago, I was posted as Deputy Commissioner Solan. तो उन दिनों में साक्षरता अभियान नया शुरू हुआ था. And as young deputy commissioners, we were in the field all the time trying to trigger the campaign. कि किसी तरह से ये program उठ जाए. I remember a visit to a remote village, and I remember an elderly lady who was holding out saying कि मैं साक्षरता अभियान में नहीं जोड़ूंगी. I said, आपको चिट्ठी आती, आपका बेटा बाहर काम करता है, उसकी चिट्ठी आपको कौन पढ़ के सुनाएगा? She said, my husband. I said, supposing he is not at home. She said, my neighbor. I said, supposing the neighbors are out, कि मैं डाकिया को बोलूंगी वो चिट्ठी पढ़ देगा. I said, supposing मैं as DC डाकिया को order दे दूं कि इनकी चिट्ठी नहीं पढ़ के सुनानी, फिर कौन पढ़ेगा आपकी चिट्ठी? She started to think that she was dependent, that there are things she could do herself. And I'm so happy to share that a week after my visit, she came regularly to our literacy center and attained functional literacy. So we have to touch and reach those whom we want to have a voice. With that, thank you all very much. and the Secretariat will share details of the next session. Thank you to all my panelists.